welcome and introduce the Secretary of Commerce, Secretary Raimondo, former governor of Rhode Island. We know she's been an incredible champion of competitiveness, of innovation, of climate, of energy. She's an indefatigable leader. She's involved in the CHIPS. I mean, she's all over the country, and we're thrilled and honored that she's here with us today because she's certainly a change agent and a great leader for America at this Sputnik moment. So we're thrilled to have her with us today.
So I've had the honor of knowing the
Gina.
secretary for a long, long time. And so she tells me I can call her Gina, but still, it's not there. So let's you worked your tail off on the CHIPS Act, and you got it through. And so the passage and stuff is, books will be written about it, but talk about where you are now and what you think happens and sort of really implementing it, which is the real key. So
yeah. Well, first of all, happy holidays and thank you for having me. Brian and I go way back, and I am so grateful for your friendship, and every time I call him, he gives me great advice and keeps taking my calls, so it's fun for me to be on this panel with you. You know, it's interesting, most people say to me, hey, Secretary, great job getting that passed, what do we do next? To which I always say, the job is just beginning now. The implementation is where it's all at. I'll probably have to hire maybe 100 people in the next few months, scientists, engineers, top-notch investment professionals. You know, we're committed to putting together a top-notch team, committed to working with the private sector in what we do. In fact, we can't be successful unless we have a real strategic relationship with chips companies, chips designers, the whole supply chain. And what I really want to emphasize is this is, everyone focuses on, oh, you have $40 billion to give subsidies to companies, and you're going to make a few big deals. And I'd like to say two points. First, the bill was $52 billion, and about 40 is for the incentives for companies. But the really exciting part, I think, is the $11 billion for research, development, and innovation. That's the future. That's what we're playing for here. What we're playing for is innovation, research and development, collaboration with you all in academia to figure out where do we go next? What are the new innovations in materials and packaging and chips for the future? So I'm very focused on that. And then the second...
So you brought your checkbook with you so people can just line up
yeah,
outside?
Exactly. No, I didn't. That's his job.
Yeah. I have mine with me.
That's his job, right? Come on.
But you said you had $12 billion. These are the great universities and research labs of the world.
Some.
Okay.
But then the other thing that I do want to say is, let's think big about this. You know, like if all I do in the next few years is write a few checks to companies and build a few new facilities, like the president should fire me. I got to do more than that. We're out to play for the whole ecosystem of talent. You know, we ought to be pumping out 1 million engineers in America. Community colleges should get in on the action here and training process engineers and technicians to work in these fabs. Massive amounts of new research and development. I was out in Arizona on Tuesday with the president for the TSMC announcement. Huge new fab, biggest of its kind in America. Exciting, but there's 155 suppliers that want to now think about Arizona, to be near TSMC. That's what we're playing for. All the upstream suppliers and the talent and the design. So, yeah, I'm excited about it. It's a big mission.
So let's pick up on a couple different themes embedded in that. First, Megan Hughes, our old colleague from CCRI. She's somewhere. I think she's in the green room because I think she's next up. But one of the ideas that Deborah and I have is to connect the community colleges into this because we're doing place-based innovation and skills development, the future of work. So talk about how you think of that. You mentioned it earlier. It was mentioned earlier, parents. How do you think about the entirety of the education system feeding this demand cycle?
Well, I love the way you said it. It has to be the entirety, truthfully the entirety. You know, I think like K through 12 has to be thinking about how do we teach students to think about manufacturing, to think about trigonometry as applied to my son's taking trigonometry, so that's on my mind. But trigonometry as applied to a job, engineering is applied to a job. How community colleges. I mean, I think if you believe, as I do, that America will be having a big increase in these advanced manufacturing jobs in the electronic supply chain, in chips, in biotechnology, that's a huge opportunity for community colleges to get in the game. Process technicians, testing, packaging, don't need a 4-year degree, need more than a college degree, and they all have to be, to my mind, this is the most exciting area of public-private partnerships. Like, really, spend half a day in school, half a day on the job, teaching engineering. I also think, by the way, if you teach engineering differently and have it be more applied from day one to solving the world's problems, making people healthier and such, you'll get more women, you'll get more kids of color. Yeah. So anyway, I think that's what we have to work on as a team.
So inherent in the public policy aspects of the CHIPS Act is the question of China and competition. This is the Council on Competition. So the historical emergence of this was around competing with Japan in manufacturing, and now we have a different competitor. So you recently gave a speech at MIT about China and the China challenge, so to speak. Talk about, as the administration thinks about this act plus other things, and how just the sheer economic competition versus anything else, not the geopolitical type.
So the good news for you is the speech was 51 minutes, and I'm going to give you the 51-second summation. Okay. Essentially what the speech said is, this is the competition that'll define our time. It's a fierce competition, and we have to be eyes wide open about it. For a long time, the bet was trade more with China, be more open with China, they'll be open, they'll reform. That's an indefensible bet. Like, China's pretty clearly saying they want to decouple in certain ways from us, and having a more heavy-handed approach of government into their economy. So we have to realize that. So we have to protect our technology from getting into the hands of their military. We have to invest like crazy in our own research and development and talent and R&D, doing that. But, and this is important, we do have to continue to trade. There's plenty of trade. You would know better than I, actually. Like, the majority of our trade with China is fairly benign and creates jobs in America. And so we can't be so simplistic as to say, let's decouple. Nor should we, in my judgment, be in the business of putting tariffs on things like furniture and bike helmets. Right. We got to protect our semiconductors and the crown jewel of our innovation. But beyond that, we have to trade where we can.
So if you think about the semiconductor industry, especially the strategic part of that, moving to other industries relative to competition of the U.S., we all got a lesson in PPE and things like that in the early days of the pandemic. But so that's one. But think about now the infrastructure bill, the IRA. Where do you think your job as the secretary to drive that investment and get that investment completed? The CHIPS Act more in your purview, but the other ones are critically important to get it done. So talk about how that's all sort of fits together in your mind.
Well, it all fits together because competition with China begins at home. Running faster than China begins with having the science we need in America, having the chips made in America, not being 100% reliant upon China for solar panels as we are today, not being utterly dependent on China for the critical minerals that go into EV batteries as we are today. The devil's in the details on this one, and so what we need to do which is what this is designed to do, is say, we're not going to make everything in America, and we can't mine critical minerals here that aren't here, but we have to just be really thoughtful around where are our dependencies. We get all lithium essentially from China, which is massively dependent on China. 90% of semiconductors from Taiwan, and on and on. We have to have a strategy. Some of that has to be reshored, and the rest of it, we have to have partnerships with countries in the rest of Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, and just be really smart about it. And create more jobs in America. I think you will see a massive job creation in manufacturing, but in the rest of green technology. And by the way, back to China, the Commerce Department, have to help companies sell their green IT and green technology to China. China's going to consume trillions of dollars of green technology in the coming years. They ought to be buying some of that from American companies.
So come back to the idea of a public-private partnership. I've worked with you for years in various treasurer, governor, and now the Commerce Secretary, and I think you've always had a mind that took all parts of the ecosystem, make it work. So how do you envision the private partnerships with the Secretary of Commerce Administration, from this group, from universities and labs to labor to companies to policy? How do you really think about it, and how do you make sure it's inclusive?
Yeah. So I will say, and I want to be very clear about this, we won't be successful unless we have full engagement from every part of the private sector. $52 billion is a drop in the bucket. The point of $52 billion is to crowd in private capital of all kinds alongside of us. So I'm going to be pushing semiconductor companies to go bigger and do more than they might otherwise do, but for our subsidy. All those suppliers that I just mentioned that want to be in Arizona, they should come back not just to be near TSMC, but to be near Intel and such. So we need to work with those private companies. The training, I cannot say it enough. We could talk all day about this. We won't. We will not succeed unless we figure out a way to have more like industrial focused training of scientists and engineers. And that requires industry.
So that brings us back to some of the specialized ideas that you've had in the past, working as the skills base versus the general education. And we had people talk, the former panel talked about it, the 4-year degree versus actual skills. How does the government sort of deal with that and make that happen and make that more live?
I think some of it is convening and bringing companies to the table. Some of it is incentivizing. I will spend a portion of the $52 billion paying for some of this, subsidizing it in some way. So if someone's going to go to school half-time and go to work half-time, we might have to do some kind of a wage subsidy. We might have to pay for the schooling. We're going to have to get creative.
Right.
So I think we have to work on that.
We've got a lack of workers too. I mean, we're sitting over 3.7% unemployment, so it's a little hard to vision that we create 1 million jobs. Where are we going to get the people from too? So how do we manufacture the capability at that pace, which is?
It's brutal. So look, we have 2 minutes left. We can't talk about immigration, but we need to think about it. Like that has to be top of the list, and I'm pushing Congress at a bare minimum to think about some kind of visa reform for tech workers for the chip industry, for example. That's going to be a piece of the puzzle. We don't have enough women in STEM fields. We have tens of millions of women who are very smart, working full-time in poverty, in low-wage, low-skilled jobs. It's a huge untapped resource. Let's figure out how to find them, provide the childcare and support they need to get through the job training so they can get these jobs. An initiative that I'm launching alongside of the CHIPS work is 1 million women in construction. We're going to create 110,000 construction jobs building these fabs. Women make fantastic welders, plumbers, and pipe fitters. Let's find them, recruit them, train them, and put them to work. And I'm going to put incentives, strings attached, if you will, to our money, to these companies. Work with community colleges, work with high schools, hire more women. So I think it's, and companies have to really change the way they hire. Yeah. And universities and colleges and high schools and community colleges really have to change the way they teach. It's not enough to do like internships. It's working and getting class credit for your work and being much more applied in the whole way it's done.
So so one of the questions that our teams were talking about is, we both had unique experience of playing rugby. Obviously not against each other, but you're a lot younger than I am.
Thank you for clarifying.
Talk about the teamwork that has to go on in a sports team and how you apply that in life and how you think about it, having come from private equity, government, et cetera. How do you take those life lessons for you?
Yeah, so I used to joke. I was a Rhode Island politician. Rhode Island politics is kind of hard knocks. And I would say that playing rugby was like the best training for Rhode Island politics. You know, I was, of course, not the biggest girl on the team. So you had to figure out how to survive and use your leadership skills and work in a team. But I had a ball. It was one of the most fun things I've ever done. And you learn how to not get too hurt, which is also a great skill. But
resiliency. Well, thank you for your time. And I think this group is an organized, thoughtful group with a multi-decade history of focusing on the issues that are most important to our country around competition in the world. And what's unique about it is it connects all the component parts from straight great research and innovation through delivering that innovation through both an idea plus the people to build that idea. So we stand ready to help you in any way we can.
I love that, and I appreciate it. Look, we have a moment. I was excited to do this, not just because I love Brian, but like you said, Congress appropriated $1 trillion+ to make these investments. We have this epic competition with China, which will be won or lost around this axis of innovation, technology, and training. This is a moonshot moment. This is an inflection point in America. And so I'm issuing a call to arms to you and to me to really get in the boat, because 10 years from now, if we invest this money right and in a holistic way, America will be a fundamentally stronger, more competitive, more innovative, and I hope more unified place. So I appreciate the offer of help, and I'm excited to work with all of you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.